Give them a shot to do what?
So, what do you guys want to talk about? This is Jeff Martin alongside the trendsetter Bryan Burger. We are the Jersey Wrecking Crew. It's been a week, a little bit over a week since John Cena retired, man. I can't believe how fast time flies, especially in the holiday season. But guess what? Our gift to you is another episode of the High Spot Podcast, HSP on the Give Shot Network. And if you can't watch us, you can listen to us on all major podcast platforms, HSP High Spot Podcast. So again, can't watch us, listen to us, and make sure you subscribe to the HSP on Give a Shot Network. Trendsetter, happy holidays. Christmas is upon us. But again, like I said, our gift to the crew is another episode of HSP. Can you believe, Trendsetter, that it's been now a little over a week since John Cena retired? Dude, I feel like we're doing the live. It feels just like yesterday, but it's been almost over a week. Unbelievable. How's everything going?
Jeff, the High Spot Podcast is the gift that keeps on giving. Shades to Christmas Vacation there. No, listen.
How many times have you watched Christmas Vacation so far?
Not as many as I thought I was going to see this year. I really did. Last year, man, anytime you turn on the channel, it's Christmas Vacation. I was getting kind of sick and tired of it. And now I think I've only seen it maybe 3 times, really. So.
You know what we're going to do? We're gonna give our top 5 Christmas movies here before Christmas on IG and all our social media. We'll give our top 5, and obviously coming up on January 5th, 2026, we'll have our award shows as well, the best of 2025. So definitely make sure you look for that one. But here, like I said, giving you an early Christmas gift with another episode of HSP. So much to discuss. And I guess we got to touch on this, Trendsetter, because obviously it is a form of entertainment, and obviously that guys like Jake Paul, Logan Paul are doing their thing. And did you happen to catch the fight on Friday night between Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul? I mean, that was something else. But I think we were talking to each other about it, and obviously it's like you had to watch it. I mean, it is entertaining. It was a Friday night. What am I going to do, right? So your thoughts on this fight this weekend?
A lot to do on a Friday night. To steal a phrase, a very famous phrase, it was what I thought it was going to be. Listen, I'll be honest with you. As much hate as Jake and Logan get, there's nothing but a tremendous amount of respect to have. But I'll be honest with you, I really didn't know the event was happening. So I kind of caught at the tail end of it, obviously watching the main event with Anthony Joshua there. But listen, man, you got what you wanted out of it. How can I say this without being too critical, right? But you knew what you were expecting out of it. Now, I think everyone was complaining or hypothesizing was there's going to be fixed, was going to be scripted, similar to the whole Tyson situation, right? But when you looked at these two and you saw the massive difference in terms of one was a heavyweight and one was clearly not that, the biggest surprise out of it, Jeff, that it lasted as long as it did. That was the biggest surprise to me. Yeah. Jake Paul got tired towards the tail end of the fight. He was running around the ring the entire time, and it was just a matter of time. And I was thinking to myself, too, man, if he keeps this up and Anthony Joshua doesn't even throw one punch or a consecutive amount of punches, man, this could be a scenario where it goes to the judges and you have Jake Paul winning this, and everyone's going to be like, oh, my God, here we go again. So I think the crowd got what they wanted. They want to see Jake Paul get knocked out, and they did.
But again, though, obviously this matchup Jake Paul didn't have to take. It was rescheduled, and like I was telling you before, even the outcome, man, like what we saw Jake Paul suffer a broken jaw and all the surgeries he had to go afterwards, but he didn't really have to take this one. He's basically could have just been like, hey, I'm going to take off till next year, and then, we'll get back to, go back to fighting. And decided to take on Anthony Joshua, who was like bigger, stronger, and it wasn't a matter of if, but when he was going to be able to nail Jake Paul. And listen, before we start with the analysis, which there's really not that much to analyze, but there's a lot of haters of Jake Paul and Logan Paul, and I'm pretty sure, YouTubers, content creators, and they made it big. And now, obviously, they're at this level where one can go and wrestle in WWE and one can go and, fight. And kudos to them for doing it. And obviously, I think everybody would want an opportunity to pursue your dream and chase your dreams, because these guys are doing it. And no matter that, you might think that they're arrogant or they can come out like as douchebags or something like that. Hey, that's how you take it. But when you look much deeper into it, you got to respect these guys for what they do. Logan on the wrestling side, Jake Paul on the boxing and entertainment side. Listen, they're living out their dream, and it's commendable. Now, whether you like the fights or not, or what you think of the validity of these fights, that's one thing. But the fact that they're doing what they want to do on their terms and chasing their dream, that's commendable. And I think everybody should strive to be or try to dream like these guys, because obviously they've made it. They've made it in content creation, and obviously every content creator has somebody that they aspire to be like, or someone that they follow, and they've laid the tracks or the blueprint for how to do content creation. And everyone obviously is trying to be a Logan Paul or Jake Paul, so kudos to them on that. But as we get the analysis on this, obviously a much bigger fighter, and I didn't know this, but the ring was 22 by 22. I'm not sure what I know wrestling ring is 20 by 20, so I'm not sure what a boxing ring is, but this was kind of made for what we were watching, what Jake was doing, and that was a lot of moving around. And so Anthony Joshua had to chase. And unfortunately, though, for Jake, it was just too much as far as moving around, because he couldn't, he could not. He was exhausted. He was huffing and puffing right about like third, fourth round, and you could see it. And then you made a great point, Trendsetter, is like, listen, man, hit the body, because Joshua was missing. And obviously that the ring size had something to do with it, but you were like, he's missing. Why don't you just go to the body? And like you said, great analysis while we were watching this fight was that eventually his hands are going to go down. He's going to get tired. And obviously he fell down lots of times, right? He fell down lots of times, tried to drag down Anthony Joshua as well. And obviously that wasn't a very fun part of it, and even got the referee upset, and got the announcers were kind of like, well, what's going on? Because by the third round, you're like, what the hell am I watching, right? And the crowd was getting antsy too. But your perfect analysis, you called it right there, man. Go to the body, hit the body, hit those arms, and eventually we saw him go down. And just your thoughts, though, when you saw it, was it a matter of when, not if? And also, too, how big of this was for Joshua? Because everyone's talking about whether this is rigged, the stage, where they have special things that are set in the contract that you can and you can't do. This had to be big for Joshua as a fact of just the validity of this fight, right?
Well, that's always been the controversy with Jake Paul fights. Are they rigged? Is it this legit? I mean, because nobody wants to really believe that's actually a scenario where a YouTuber who has, listen, I take nothing away from Jake Paul. He's done a tremendous job of training, get himself in shape, and his skills have improved. But to be at the same level as elite fighters, now, you have, Anthony Joshua, an elite boxer in the heavyweight division, and these other individuals, aren't up to that level. So it's kind of like, come on, what we're going to do. And I know a lot of people want to say Mike Tyson, but listen, Mike Tyson was way past his prime. Should have really been in there. And you could tell there are times where, people will, look at footage and say, hey, listen, this is, Jake saying, hey, listen, calm down, relax, is it as scripted as people claim it to be. Just to add to your point, though, too, Jeff, when I looked it up, too, in terms of official sizes for a boxing ring, it's either 16 by 16, 18 by 18, or 20 by 20. So the ring was actually a lot larger, which gave Jake the ability to run around, which we did. I first called that. I think he's gonna be tired. There's no way he can do this for 8 rounds. Now, this was a legitimate 12-round fight, 8 rounds. So yes, to me, it was a matter of time. But the closer we got to the 4th and 5th, I was starting to kind of think, is this a scenario where it's just like he's just waiting for that one punch? Luckily, he was able to go to the body, hit the shoulders, get him exhausted. I mean, I think Jake was also fatiguing himself by running around as crazy as he did. So, yeah, it was a matter of time. But there was a part of me that was a little bit worried, thinking, man, like, is he going to wait till like the 6th, the 7th, or 8th round to try to do something at that point? it might be a little too late. And if you go to decisions, anything can happen, especially with in the fights that people think are rigged to begin with anyway, and they're scripted. So listen, at the end of the day, entertaining. To your point too, Jeff, also add this to a lot of people that are haters of Jake and Logan are the same individuals that wish they were in that spot. They were in the situation and in the lifestyle that Jake and Logan have done for themselves too. So listen, as much as disrespect comes along and the hate comes along, everyone envies to want to be in that position where Jake and Logan have the ability of kind of basically doing whatever they want to do, one in boxing and one in the WWE. So listen, at the end of the day, I hate using that term, end of the day, but basically what's going to happen is that now Jake has no choice but to take time off. Hadn't gotten surgery on his jaw, was broken in 2 places. I think he had something with his foot as well. I think he might have dislocated or it looked like he sprained his ankle. Maybe it was a little bit worse and more severe. So
let's just say a foot injury, right?
Foot injury, yeah. So he has significant time to take off before we ever see him in the ring again. So
the original plan was for him to take on Gervonta Davis in November, and then this match,
much smaller fighter.
Yeah. So this is a heavyweight, and he had to move up. I think he made it to 216. I think Joshua was like at 241, and then who knows what he was up on that fight. But obviously, you could tell when they got in there that he was obviously the bigger fighter, and it was a huge differential when you saw them in the ring in the middle. And then obviously Jake Paul comes out to the Hulk Hogan as a tribute, comes out in the gear, and you're thinking, okay, anything can happen. People root for the underdog. I don't know how many people were rooting for the underdog in this case.
I tell you who was rooting for the underdog, Jeff. Oscar De La Hoya. And this is going to be my little clap back at Oscar for his little clap back Tuesdays, whatever he does there. For him to think that Jake Paul was going to win by knockout because, as he says, styles make fights, guys. Listen, come on, let's be honest. That's completely absurd, ridiculous, and a fair one-on-one fight, which we kind of got towards the tail end of the fight. There's no way there's any power. And listen, Jake had some good shots in there too, but at not any time did I think he hurt Anthony Joshua. And that was evident there in terms of the difference in terms of power and the punch. So it was just ridiculous to think that, he had a puncher's chance. I don't know whether, they wanted to do it just to get clickbait and stuff like that, or they really believed it. But if a guy like Oscar De La Hoya, who I've lost a lot of respect for, will say that over the years and barely have any to begin with now for him to say something like that just for clickbait, I get it. But if he actually believes that, I feel sorry for him. I really do.
Well, that guy was your fighter. You loved Oscar De La Hoya back in the day. I remember you were a huge De La Hoya fan back in the early 2000s. And listen, again, it's not that much of analysis, but obviously the spectacle of Jake Paul in that entrance with his brother Logan, and for at least for 2.5 rounds, 3 rounds, there was really nothing going on. People were giving Jake Paul the first round just because he got something in there. He was able to get lucky with some of the punches, but the reach was just impossible. And you get tired like that, and then you're lunging, you're going to leave yourself open. And then you mentioned the body shots. You hit the body, hands go down. You hit the hands. He was able to get the hands, hit the hands as well too. And then just hands dropped, and then he was tumbling and gassed. Is basically the word. He was gassed by then. And then, man, did he feel that punch, though? Oh, my goodness. I can't even imagine. And then Jake obviously mentioned in the post that he probably broke his jaw. And then when you saw that close-up of his smile, the teeth, the jaw was just all over the place. Had to get teeth removed. 2 titanium plates, 1 on each side, and lost some teeth. So, I know they got paid handsomely, but I just don't know how much you would have to pay me to get in there I probably would have died because I just, it's just, I'm not a boxer or whatever like that. And obviously I would be able to take a punch like that, but that had to have hurt. So obviously whatever he got paid, it was not well worth it, but he obviously got paid a handsome amount to take that. So I'm just glad he's okay.
I don't know if there's a big enough paycheck for me to take that myself, man. I don't know.
And then the post, there's that picture of a Logan and Jake is on the on the hospital bed and Logan standing up. And then we saw the Logan trying to take the chain off of Anthony Joshua, which you told me about it. And I went and looked back at it, and I mean, like, what an agitator Logan was there. So always wanted
He's great at it, man.
Always wanted to rally something. He's the ultimate heel, dude. Obviously, made for pro wrestling. And we'll see. We'll see what the future is for Jake. Obviously, Anthony Joshua wants to get back into the world championship picture. Maybe a upcoming fight with Tyson Fury. I don't know. Boxing is so messed up, dude. You never know. they never give you the fights that you want to see. But this is obviously the next big fight to make. Terrence Crawford, obviously, retired the week before, so that's done. Canelo is maybe past his prime. So to me, this would be the fight, the heavyweight fight that people want to see. And as far as Jake, he said he's going to go back to cruiserweight. We'll see what's out there, but obviously he's going to keep on fighting. Would he ever go to WWE with his brother, and would he be entertaining like Logan? I got to say yes. I got to say both these guys are made for WWE, and if they were ever a tag team, holy crap, Trendsetter, they would be probably, in all honesty, one of the best heel tag teams ever without even seeing Jake in a wrestling ring.
I can't even argue that statement. I can't, because listen, as much as people want to dispute the fact that, oh, look at, Jake, he's in the boxing ring, he's taking serious damage, he's taking high risk. There is risk in professional wrestling, as well, as Logan has alluded to on his podcast and when he's done interviews before, of how taxing it is on the body. Now, for somebody like Logan, it comes natural because he's so naturally athletic. I don't know if the same athleticism, and people say, oh, he's doing boxing though, but it's a little bit different in terms of that and doing it in the ring. But I think I would agree. I really feel right now, after this fight, he's probably going to go to, like you said, he's going to go to cruiserweight after he recovers from his injury. He really is banking on trying to get a world championship of some kind. So there's still that dream of his to do that, along with the management, and basically trying to convince the public that, Jake Paul had a legitimate shot, and it was basically Anthony Joshua who was, tugging on his head and causing him to be exhausted as to why this fight was lost. But regardless of that, I think that transition moving in, unless Jake has a few more fights left in him and see how that goes, I think that would be the next possible solution for him. I think it makes the most sense. Longevity wise, though, too, it's like, you see Jake there, you see Logan more often on TV now, but still it's a scenario that he's used sporadically, I guess, in a sense, to elongate his career. That would be amazing, man. Can you imagine the heat, the nuclear heat that people would have to want to boo these guys? They hate them already. And to see them in WWE as possible tag team champions, or just as a team together in some type of, entourage, whether it's past the vision or not, it would be amazing to watch.
Oh, man, Jake Paul should be in WWE. I think he should maybe take one more match, and then for 1 year, just give it 1 year to set up a WrestleMania match against the Usos. Give me Jake and Logan Paul versus the Usos next year, WrestleMania, or in Saudi, whatever. Take that time, and listen, Jake might think that's all real. I think Logan has been able to balance sports entertainment and pro wrestling, and I think he's more of a guy that's more well adjusted for it. But Jake, give him a couple matches, and I think that the bug, will bite him, and I think he'll want to do this. Just give me a year of Jake and Logan together. Help Logan out, because he can maybe, learn more about the wrestling psychology, although he's obviously a natural heel. But Jake and Logan, my goodness, dude. Give me matches like that with the Usos or the New Day. But Jake and Logan for 1 year would be one of the greatest wrestling tag teams ever. Maybe never reach that top 5 for longevity, but definitely when you go back in the wrestling history and look at tag teams, they would definitely be a top tag team when you look at them, because they both got that heel, that charisma. I wonder if Jake, though, obviously would probably be a little bit more of an agitator. He'd probably be more harder to get to, hey, listen, man, this is sports entertainment. Obviously he might be a little bit more hard to deal with, but man, Jake and Logan were meant to be WWE superstars, and I think they would make one hell of a tag team.
And I doubt there haven't been conversations already about that. So, I would be surprised if there weren't already conversations about that when Jake's done with his boxing career at whatever point that might be. And you would think maybe after this fight sooner than later, but that would make a lot of sense. I would not be opposed to it. And I think a lot of fans would enjoy it, and people would pay money to see that.
So WWE is now in their holiday tapings mode, which is great, because for the longest time, WWE has been on the road for the holidays. And as times change, it's not the 80s and 90s, it's not the Attitude Era. There's actually now the trend where, especially under now TKO, that the wrestlers get to be home for the holidays, which is a great thing. But for us wrestling fans, sometimes we complain and, oh, how come this show's taped? And then you have to avoid the spoilers, which, let's face it, Trendsetter, it's impossible, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go with the fact that we haven't read the spoilers, but obviously you guys are too smart. You know what's going on. But as for now, though, it's good that the wrestlers get time to be home. It's good that they have that chance to be with their families. and just enjoy the holidays, because they used to be on the road for MSG. They used to do all those things, but now they get to go and be home for the holidays, and you can't fault them for that, and you're happy that they get that. Obviously, I'm pretty sure some of the boys would love to be home for the holidays, or maybe not back in the 80s, 90s, or Attitude Era, but you're kind of glad for wrestling that it's adjusted in this period that people get to enjoy holidays like Christmas. But like I said, we're not going to talk about the spoilers because obviously we don't want to spoil that for you guys. But what we do know is that the masked wrestler, the masked man, has finally revealed himself. I would have liked for it to go a little bit further, but you can tell now it's being drawn out just because he was interfering all the time. So we find out that it's Austin Theory. It's not anybody else. It's Austin Theory. And I'm glad for Austin Theory because the guy had it. I just don't know what was going on, why it was not gelling, why the Cena match hurt him more than built him up. I won't get that. I just don't understand. Maybe the Vince McMahon rub was something that it was just hard for them, maybe just for them to forget about that for a while so that they wouldn't associate Vince McMahon to Austin Theory. But you got to be glad for Austin Theory that it gets us this opportunity to be in the Vision, and we'll see what happens. But I think that Austin Theory is still a main player. And when you look at the future trendsetter, like we were talking about last episode, you've got the Braun Breakers, you got the Bronson Reeds, you've got all these guys coming up, Obafemi, Trick Williams. Austin Theory is not even 30 yet. He's still 27, 28 years old, 29 maybe. He's in that future. I still think he's a main player of that future for the WWE heading into 2026. What do you think of Austin Theory being the guy in the Vision now who reveals himself after being the masked man?
He's 28 years old.
28?
Yeah.
All right. So he's to me, he is up there as far as prospects for 2026.
Oh, most definitely. Listen, we had discussed about it before that we thought it was going to be Austin Theory. Then there were rumors circulating, Randy Orton, other rumors going around that, it could be so-and-so, right? We weren't really entertaining those rumors, as I really felt it would have been Austin Theory because they were speculating that he was going to make a major return and going to be an integral part in storylines. And again, we've heard that before with other performers and it never came to fruition, but we really felt strongly about that. So I'm really happy for Austin. I'm excited for him, because I always felt that there were a lot of stops and starts. And to your point, yeah, maybe the Vince McMahon rub, it wasn't necessarily a great thing for him too. And that whole John Cena scenario, which you would have thought would have been awesome TV, would have been awesome storyline, kind of John Cena kiboshing it right away when saying that I don't believe you and talking about how they had to filter in, audience reaction for him and things like that. And Austin really not being able to respond back to that in a way. So the thing about Austin is that what he can do in the ring and his physical gifts and his athleticism. To Cena's point, during that time of the rivalry when they faced each other at WrestleMania, wasn't the best match at all. Like you said, I think it hurt him regardless of the win or not. But I really felt that there was some truth behind it, that as much as he was doing a great job doing the whole gimmick with the phone and then changing it to being all day, all the time. And then when Triple H tried to revamp what Austin Theory was, he was kind of trying to be more of somewhat of a badass, but then kind of back and forth between one of those, heels that kind of was a sinister heel and did everything to kind of cut corners and vice versa. I just felt like he never found his place. I'm hoping with this new version of Austin Theory, we get a scenario where he can connect to the audience in some way. Now, I'm not saying he has to be somebody that, spews out promos to get attention, but just something different about him in terms of what we've seen so far. And I liked it in the beginning when Triple H did his version of it, where he was like being a little bit more of a badass, a little bit more tougher in the ring. I'd like that version instead of him being the obnoxious heel. So I'm hoping we get that version of him going forward, and I hope they see it through. But listen, he is 28 years old. There are obviously ample chances for him in terms of like what he has to bring to the table of just the look about him. Like we've said it before too, when we first interviewed him, like he has that look about him. Like this guy looks like he's a star. He brings that about him when he's in the ring just by looking at him, right? I hope he has that connection. I really do. So I'm excited for this move for Austin Theory. But my question to you, Jeff, is that if this doesn't work, is that it? Or do you think he still has an opportunity for multiple chances in case this thing with the Vision doesn't work out for him?
It's got to work for Austin Theory because I think that this is a prime position. Now, you read a lot that Paul Heyman really likes Austin Theory, and Austin Theory is there to perhaps take pins for Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. Who knows whether that's going to be his job, but it doesn't hurt him to be with Paul Heyman. I really think, Trendsetter, that this is Austin Theory's best chance to succeed. I can't answer whether he will, but now it seems like the road is paved for him to do so. I think, honestly, a lot of stuff that hurt Austin Theory was, let's talk about WrestleMania, him and John Cena. I think that he just couldn't hang with him on the mic. I think that really hurt him a lot. I think, obviously, the failed Money in the Bank attempt where he didn't cash it on a major title. Almost everybody goes for major title, and then Austin Theory failed to do so on a mid-card title. That also hurt him, and it kind of really didn't make any sense. Then go back to Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns torched Austin Theory on the mic. There was no coming back from that. And obviously the worst thing that hampered Austin Theory was being Vince McMahon's boy. That's basically what happened to me. And I look back on it and it kind of makes sense, because this whole thing with McMahon that was lurking, all these allegations, all these things that were going to come out, and for Austin Theory to be associated with Vince McMahon, as much as WWE tried to not talk about it, I think the best thing that they thought would be for Austin Theory just to go away for a little bit. And I think that's what they did at the end of the day. When I look back on it and I think about where was Austin Theory, the fans were clamoring for it, and the fans cheered for him when they saw him. So there was people wanting to see what was going to be next for Austin Theory. And I think that, again, this is a reboot. It's been now a while since he's been associated with Vince McMahon, and him being aligned with Paul Heyman, I think, can help him out. And we'll see what happens on Raw, because he is scheduled to compete on Monday Night Raw. I'm not trying to spoil anything else, but we will see what happens to Austin Theory. And again, he's still, like you said, 20 years old. So there should be a very, very nice upswing for him in 2026 as he now enters with Division. So we'll see. I think he's got to make it work. I think this is his best chance to make it work. And I definitely see Austin Theory being a major player. Like you said, Trendsetter, he has it. He has the tools. And now let's see if he puts it together with the vision. All right, Trendsetter. So the holidays are upon us. And like I said, SmackDown is also in the holiday season. We saw this big build now for Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes. One thing that I wanted to get to that, Trendsetter, and then there's one other thing as well before we talk about the whole John Cena last interview, which we're going to close with, and that is this. Man, listen, SmackDown's going to get kind of a reboot, moving to 3 hours. You're going to get guys from NXT, but I'm going to say it again. What I never thought could happen was just the crowd just going dead for Giulia, man. And I feel for her, and I don't think it's because she's not trying, but just something is not working. And I think just the fans don't care. She's not relating to them. I don't think she's been put in the best situation, and it's clearly affecting her push, fans caring. And I'm just surprised. I went back this weekend and looked back at her intro in NXT. She had this aura coming out to confront Roxanne, and now it's barely crickets, Trendsetter. And obviously, I mean, hopefully it changes, but I don't know how to fix it. Do you?
Well, I told you this before, and listen, what I'm about to say, everyone's going to be like, well, it's a demotion. Well, at this scenario, you can view it as a demotion. You can view it for whatever you want, but you just said it yourself. It's not working. We didn't know how to fix it. Moving her to Raw is not going to change anything. Moving her, for example, lowering the card or having somebody speak for her is not going to change anything. I think, honestly, you have to bring her back down to NXT. I think that there is this huge enthusiasm when, Giulia first arrived, and then Stephanie Vaquer, and thinking, all right, these two women are going to be the anchors of this new women's, division that we want to create. Though they're going to be the focal point. Stephanie Vaquer had such a huge momentum, a huge tidal wave behind her, that people just got on and rode that and basically left Giulia behind, and she can't keep up. Now, the funny thing is that both these ladies, English is not their first language. Giulia can speak a certain amount of English, and so can Stephanie, but yet people are drawn to Stephanie and not Giulia. My biggest thing is, again, this is the old school mark of myself, is that you have to let the in-ring work do the story sometimes. And I just feel that whoever whoever Stephanie's in the ring with, they get better with her, and she's able to work with that style. It's not crossing the same thing with Giulia, where she's talented enough to work with anybody. She's proven that in terms of what she's done all over the world, but it doesn't seem to be clicking in terms of what she's trying to do. Now, as she's a heel, she's not going to do all these things she does too, because less is more. You don't want to show that all to the audience. I get it. To me, she has to go back to NXT. She never finished her run there. In a way, it's a way for her to kind of be repackaged or kind of reintroduced and give more time, because right now it's not working. And if people are naive enough to believe that we're just going to keep putting her out there, now it is possible that WWE will do that. We'll just put her out there, whatever, because they're going to try to get whatever money's worth they can. It's just going to hurt her, and you're going to hear more and more crickets out there, because when you saw her from what you described in her debut in NXT, crowd was going crazy. They were excited. Oh my God, this is the free agent we had that we've been waiting for. Now, to that point, and this is the closing, unlike Stephanie Vaquer, Giulia had so much expectation on her that, similar to Austin Theory, remember you mentioned Austin Theory, having that association with Vince McMahon. I'll go back to Drew McIntyre when he was called the chosen one by Vince McMahon. As soon as that happens to a superstar, in my opinion, Jeff, you are destined to fail. That is it. You're destined to fail. And the same thing happened with Giulia. They had built her up. Now, she was sidelined with injury before she could make her debut, which, long story short, probably worked against her, because if she had debuted earlier, maybe she wouldn't have had to deal with this whole Stephanie Vaquer tidal wave that was running right through her. But I think because the expectations are so high for her, there's no way she's going to live up to those expectations, and in a sense failed at that point. And the only way to salvage this, in my opinion, is to send her back to NXT and hope that doing that can somehow get some momentum behind her so that she can come back to the main roster at some point. And in my opinion, it wouldn't be anytime soon.
Now, here's the thing, though. You talk about sending her back to NXT. It works, and sometimes it doesn't work. Obviously, it works more than it doesn't. The thing is, now with that division being so competitive in the way it is she, it's very tough to focus on somebody already, because they're trying to focus on somebody that okay, failed. I'll be honest, failed, has come back, and now where do you put her? Obviously, you can set her in there and put her in events because she's Giulia, but does she impede anybody else from coming up? Now, I'll say this now. If you put Giulia, if you put her to the side and you say, listen, off the record, talk to me if she's somebody she trusts, I bet you down deep inside she regrets signing with WWE, because all that courtship, the basically what felt like years in trying to get her over here. And I'm pretty sure, look, she's not wrestling her style. She's not wrestling consecutively. This girl's probably wrestled. She's never had more than a day off in her life. And now she's wrestling, sporadically, backstage segments, which I think set her up to fail. Short matches, like you said, she doesn't get her chance to express herself in the ring. So all these things, even having a mouthpiece, and listen, Count James is trying, but I think it's a failed experiment. And I don't see, especially with the females that are coming up, with the Kendall Grays of the world, with the Sol Rukas of the world, with even the JC Janes of the world, it is imperative that they start out, and whatever it is, whatever solution or answer they think for Giulia, they need to start soon, because listen, that freight train of female wrestlers that are coming up, it's not dying down anytime soon. Before you know it, Sol Ruka is going to be up there. Like I said, Kendall Gray, obviously you're going to want to keep her down there for a little bit, but she's ready to go now. These female wrestlers are just progressing. I mean, look at Maxine Dupree. Even Maxine Dupree has been, the way that they've developed her and just the match that she had, she's much better, and I think more people would want to see Maxine Dupree than Giulia. So I think
that's a different scenario, Jeff, just because with Maxine Dupree, how much time was she just put on the sidelines over and over again before she even got this opportunity with Becky?
But she's related, though. She's okay, even though they've put the time and effort, she's had the TV time, though. She's had that, and she's related with the crowd. They've pulled for her.
They haven't given Giulia enough time to do that when Maxine's done. Now, that's a fault of Giulia, but not being able to connect to the crowd because she's not of this country. English is not her first language. That might be a part of it. But to me, either NXT or a scenario where, we've had NXT talent work with TNA. Maybe she goes after the Knockouts title. Maybe she starts projecting her way over to TNA. Listen, you're just talking about NXT stars that are moving their way out of NXT in the women's division to the main roster. So what does that mean? That means Giulia's going to be further and further down the line because people are going to want to see Sol Ruca and the other examples you mentioned before. So there are going to be spots there for people who need to be staples to a certain degree on there. I mean, Blake Blossom is still going to be on there. She's not being called up yet. To have a Giulia on that roster too to kind of help establish the younger talent. Not saying she's going to be a gatekeeper or anything like that, but I think that's what you need to do. And if she has her way of crossing over to TNA, for example, which that audience might appreciate a little bit more, that might be a way of salvaging it. That
you meant Blake
right
Monroe,
now,
right?
if we do nothing right now, Jeff, it's not going to work. So
Well, you meant Blake Monroe, right?
Blake Monroe, yeah.
Okay. So we discussed that, and we'll see what happens to Giulia. Obviously, we're rooting for her because obviously she's just super talented, and we want them to do right by her. Something that happened in NXT was something that's been an injustice to my girl, and you were talking about Blake Monroe, and that is her losing her NXT Women's North American Championship to Thea Hale. My God. Obviously, we saw the spot. We saw the botch, whatever you want to call it. She did not raise her hand up in time. It looked like she got the wind knocked out of her, and that's what happened. Obviously, she's sporting now she's sporting the injured ribs. Hopefully, she gets better, but she will get an opportunity at that championship down the road and see if she gets it back. Trent said, we looked at that. Was that the right thing to do, just to go with it? Obviously, what we heard was that it kind of hindered NXT WWE's plans because they had future storylines already planned out, but WWE just went with it. They took the pictures of Thea Hale with the championship. They did a little backstage where Blake Monroe comes and talks to Thea Hale, and they're going with Thea Hale as a North American champion for now. Do you think WWE did the right thing, and should Blake Monroe not be punished by not getting her championship back?
They did the right thing. You know why, Jeff? Because they had no choice. You could not justify the fact that the ref counted to 3. Blake Monroe, she didn't kick out, and it was botched. Now, people are going to be talking about who's to blame. I could care less right now. People are blaming the ref. People are blaming Blake. People are blaming whoever, backstage, whatever the case might be. It happened. It was a mistake, a very costly mistake. I don't think it punishes her for her not getting her title back. And if the scenario, yeah, it probably messed up a lot of plans that they're having too. But you know what, Jeff? This is the wrestling business. This is the sports entertainment business. It happens every single day where something doesn't work out, which we'll allude to when we start talking about the whole interview with John Cena and Cody Rhodes, that things can be planned out, and then just like that, they change. Sometimes it's done by creative, and sometimes it's done in the scenario where you weren't expecting it, but hey, you got to go with it, right? So I think that's what happens in this scenario. I see more of a title chase scenario again, because I don't think they want to make it look as if it was a mistake on them. They want, hey, no, this is what we've been to do, and it's going to be it's not going to be a quick title switch right here and there. There's going to be a scenario where there's going to be some time, but I think it doesn't punish Blake for everything that she's done right, at least at this point, to not have her retain her title again. So I don't think so. W had no choice, whether you think it was right or not. They had no choice but to go with it, because it was impossible to not. It wasn't like Saturday night's main event, right, where the Rockers beat the Hart Foundation with no bottom rope, and no, we can't air that. It's already been aired. People saw it, so you couldn't deny it now.
What's the famous phrase? We're live, pal. Right. So anything can happen. Obviously, these things happen less than than normal. Obviously, they rarely happen, but they do happen. And on cases like that, hey, the referee's trained to hit 1, 2, 3. I'm not waiting. I'm not going to make it look like it's not real, whatever. And unfortunately, Blake Monroe got the wind knocked out of her, and it should be nobody's fault. It happens. So we'll see what the future holds. Should Blake Monroe get her championship back, I'm pretty sure things will be adjusted as we head to New Year's Evil, and I think that she'll get her championship back. Does she need it? I don't think so, but this is another way for her to develop her character, and for her not to take maybe Thea Hale for granted as far as a competitor. So I think there'll be more progression in Blake Monroe's character, and I think it was that slow progression for Blake. I think of the North American Championship, have a run with that, then see if she goes up for the Women's Championship. Seems to be some call-ups, maybe Jordan Grace, maybe JC Jane, but they seem like they're ready to go up. So it's
amazing. Jordan Grace, we get a call up. I love Jordan Grace. She's been a guest on our show before. She's been a part of the show, but man, the way they have booked her right now, where she can't win a match to save her life to be called up to the main roster. Listen, I'd be happy for her.
Well, I just mentioned.
Yeah, no, I know you just mentioned it, but I'd be like, man, it'd be awesome if she gets called up to the main roster. But right now, man, the way they're doing her dirty on NXT TV, man, it's tough to watch.
She's in a slump. I'm not gonna lie, but there you go. That was our take on Blake Monroe and that botch with Thea Hale. But WWE did the right thing. They adjusted properly, and the music played too. Blake Monroe's music played, so it was just, for a brief minute or so there was some confusion, but it happens. It's live TV, and they're gonna go with it. And I think that was the right thing to do. Great segue, because stuff happens and you have to kind of work things out on the fly. Perfect in the case of scenario in what John Cena and Cody Rhodes talked about on the What Do You Want to Talk About podcast. The first interview post-retirement for the GOAT, John Cena, and he joined Cody Rhodes in the Nightmare Factory, which I thought was pretty good. I like that backdrop. He even had the students watch the interview, which I thought was cool. And John Cena was kind of pushing for this to be the normal trend, not in Cody's bus, not in a distillery. Do it in the Nightmare Factory, and we'll see if they do that going forward. But obviously, you look at Cody Rhodes, and his podcast is basically talking to the guest and then slowly watching him go from being coherent to incoherent, and him getting obviously a little kind of wasted towards the end, but he was able to hold it together.
That's
but,
obviously,
but he got gradually, you could see him kind of slow down, and it's always fun to see that as well. But you have to get used to that, right? In the beginning, you're like, oh my God, they're not going to talk about anything. They're going to talk about, they're going to talk about their favorite drinks, and this is going to be a wasted opportunity. We were able to get to the solid stuff. And what everyone was talking about was John Cena tapping. Why, John? Why would you do that? And then you see people saying, well, I had cancer, but John Cena taught me how to give up. Which, all right. Throw what you want. Throw fire to it. People weren't happy with the ending on Saturday Night's Main Event. There were people that didn't get it. They wanted the instant gratification. And we discussed it. If you go back to our post-show Saturday Night's Main Event, John Cena's final match, go back to the archives and check out our opinion. But John Cena gave you the answer that you were looking for. John Cena said he was dying peacefully, like Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm not a Star Wars guy. I had to go back and look at that, but I could tell it was him peacefully just handing it over to Gunther. When you look back on what John Cena said, and then we kind of agreed with that and kind of talked about it as well, that was John Cena's farewell. Can we all now move on and be at peace with what John Cena explained about why he tapped to Gunther?
I don't know if we'll ever be at peace, Jeff. But what I will say this, though, and I think this is a great point that John made. He's like, look at it as this is his art form. And whatever he puts out there is no longer his. So let's use an example. Say you're a painter and you paint a piece of art and you put it out there for people to observe and look at it. You can tell people what your initial reasoning for what you did was, but when you put it out there, it no longer belongs to you. And it's up to other people's interpretations of how they want to view it, even if the artist themselves tells you what their motive was to do it. So John described kind of how we talked about during the, post Saturday Night's Main Event live stream we did on YouTube of what we thought initially when we saw it, our initial reaction, and was very close to what John was saying. He was dying peacefully and saying, tapping out, saying was saying goodbye to the wrestling world of being in the ring as an in-ring performer. But then you have, guys, people like Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins, right, talking about it. It could be a work, whatever. But then Becky's like, if it was me, I wouldn't tap out. Well, it's not you, Becky. It's not always about you. It's about the person themselves in general. And I have no problem with it. And then they're going to be individuals. They're going to be like, even though John has stated this is the reason why he did it, they're going to be like, oh, he's just saying that because creative told him to do it. Triple H, this is all Triple H's fault. And, he's saying that because he's a good company guy, but he really didn't. Well, he's telling you this was his decision. This is what he wanted to do. And yet people still don't want to believe it. So it's not going to put any of the comments to bed at all. I think it's just going to add more to it, as we've seen after this interview. People are still talking more about it. how they did it wrong. Even John Cena's father, God bless him, is still upset about the fact that Gunther should not have been his final opponent and that he should have passed out or been pinned 1, 2, 3 rather than the tap out. I mean, I just find it hysterical at times too. And listen, nobody loves wrestling as much as you and I do, man, too. Like, we understand that feeling. I understand where they're coming from. But if you want to try to make some logical sense in something that's not logical in pro wrestling, you have to accept it. This is the way he wanted to go out. People are like, well, we want him to go out in a Shield. This was his version of going out in a Shield, not quitting and passing out to the pain like a Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13 against Bret Hart, or just being pinned clean 1, 2, 3, because we've seen that countless times during this farewell tour. It was doing the one thing that you never thought he would ever do. Granted, it's been 20 years since he last tapped out. Michael Cole had mentioned it before. But to see the one thing you would never think to do, a shocking moment, just like what happened at the Elimination Chamber, right? A shocking moment, seeing John Cena tap out, and the momentum that would give a guy who right now is the most hated guy in WWE, Gunther. It served its purpose, Jeff. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
And I think you spoke again so eloquently about the whole John Cena situation, because I respect the people that thought that it was wrong, because it sets up a debate. And if you still feel like it was the wrong thing to do, because we posted the video of John Cena explaining it, and people still didn't agree with what John did. He's a company guy, and I totally 100% believe that he was going to go along with it. And he's going to go, and if it was his idea, I believe that it was. Triple H is not going to go against it. Now, if you want to be against this whole run and you want to talk about what you didn't like about the farewell tour, we're going to get to that, because, again, things change, things pivot. They have to adjust to things. But as we get back to what John Cena did, I respect the era of the Hawaiians who wanted that instant gratification of the kids watching John Cena win, the celebration. But John Cena, in losing, celebrated the same way. At the end of the day, it was just a match, and we're celebrating the man. So everyone clapped, everyone saw the video, everyone gave John Cena a standing ovation, and his performance was over. He was not going to be there next Monday night. If he had passed out, Gunther would have ended up not delivering on him, promising that John Cena was going to tap out. And without the tap, you don't get what happens on Monday night. Mm-hmm. Now, for Jeff Jarrett to come out there, a guy who's been in wrestling for God knows how long, he knows more wrestling than I know maybe not now, but he knows more wrestling than I know in my entire body. He has in his pinky. For him to come out and just blast the outcome, I don't agree. And you as a fan need to know, if you've paid $800 for a nosebleed seat, what happens? The time-honored tradition, right, that you say is outdated, it's happened more than it hasn't. You can count on one hand how many times that the honors have not been done. And then you can maybe think the percentages and be like, well, that doesn't happen. You had to go in there thinking that John Cena was going to lose. Even though he had lost to Dominic before, he was there to pave the way for the next ones, and he peacefully tapped out. And that's what happened. Now, as we talk about pivot, though, if you want to be mad about the run, that's another thing. And I'm sure one day we will talk about that run, and he's talked about that run, Trendsetter, and the whole pivoting back and forth, and how if Travis Scott and The Rock didn't bail, we wouldn't get CM Punk, we wouldn't get Randy Orton, we wouldn't get Dominic Mysterio, we wouldn't get AJ Styles. It would have been this arc of John Cena, and we would have missed, that on these matches. We wouldn't even had Cody at SummerSlam. So I get the fact that they did the best that they could, but talk about that, Trendsetter, and how, if you think John Cena explained it well, I think he did. And down deep in his heart, at the end of the day, I don't think he regrets this run at all. I think the 36 dates was what it was, and he explained to you again his thoughts. Him and Cody never talked about Travis Scott and Rock not being there. They just pivoted and did what was next, and you got those matches. But I just think that it all starts with John Cena turning heel, whether you should live on moments and how much you can rely on them, because obviously it bit them at the end. By chasing that moment, it ruined, to me, everything else.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to break down there. I'll try to do the best I can when I'm describing it, though. But to your last point about moments, right? About him tapping out, and that was a moment that people will remember and will still be talking about it. Guys, whether they're fans or they've been in the industry, they all have their take, either agree with it or disagree with it or whatever the case might be. It's amazing that the whole discussion isn't necessarily about him losing, but the manner in which he lost. And that's what I've talked about before. Wins and losses don't matter, but usually the manner in which you do does. But I kind of find it hard to believe that I get that when somebody's an in-ring performer and they're going to be there the next week, but John isn't. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't destroy his legacy. To your point about the run, I get it. I understand. I mean, we're gonna talk about this at length, or at least a little bit more in depth than we are now. But to make it more brief, it's like, yeah, it was a moment. It was a moment that they wanted to do as a scenario about wanting to make Elimination Chamber, be more talked about. And wow, have a moment of him turning heel. John was like, okay, what a challenge. And at this stage of my career, at this stage right now, where I'm about to walk out, why not? It would have made more sense if you had Travis Scott and Rock there, to what John Cena had said. If they were there all the way towards SummerSlam, then I think you would have more reason behind the heel turn, because it would have been justified what was going on with, the whole Rock scenario and wanting Cody's soul. Now he has John Cena's soul and whatever the case might be, right? But that didn't happen. And so they had to pivot. And then, like you said, we wouldn't have gotten these matches. To John Cena's point, he was like, okay, the heel turn was a shocking moment. But isn't it funny, Jeff, that the one thing that people wanted for so many years, especially when you and I talked about it, we compared it to the turn of Hogan on WCW and joining the NWO. And you were mentioning too, man, I could see him going for another full year or 2 years. John had said it too. To get a guy over, you need 2 years, but you didn't have that. You only had 36 or minus 36 dates to do that. So I think the pivot to the end game, which was the story of John Cena and Cody Rhodes, was going to end at SummerSlam. Now, those two are no longer an equation. And so the obvious choice was the crowd didn't like it. They didn't want him heel anymore. They wanted him as Super Cena. They wanted him as the good John Cena, and they wanted to do his favorite hits tour, which is what we got going towards SummerSlam. And then he's flipped over, and he was the John Cena of old, and in terms of everyone was happy. Okay, that was a failure, but hey, it was a moment in time that we saw. But John made a great point in the interview. He said, like, yeah, people will ask, like, what was the end result? And he goes to, and part of me was a little bit frustrated, but now I the more I hear it, the more I kind of understand, who cares? Because we wouldn't have gotten what we got in terms of the matches we talked about. But at the same time, too, like, people will never once question if somebody gets injured, the fans won't get upset because, okay, that person got injured. Great point, right? Story's kibosh, and now we have to go into another direction. But when it's creatively done, or a scenario where, like, all right, two guys are no longer in it, people are in an uproar. Oh, how could you do that? Then why'd you do this? It happens. Back to what we're talking about right from the beginning. Things change. But to Blake Monroe in that scenario, like, things change on a dime in this industry, and you have to learn how to pivot and swerve and go, all right, what are we doing next? And that's what John and Cody did. They never once talked about Rock or Travis Scott. Okay, what do we do next? How can we make this story intriguing and enticing? And I think that's what we did. So ultimately, you could be upset with the run all you want. I know I wasn't happy with it. And the heel turn was something exciting, but ultimately it was a failure, not just because of Rock and Travis Scott, but because, let's be honest, the crowd didn't want it anymore. They liked the moment. They liked the initial start of it. But towards the end, they were like, no, we don't want to cheer him now. We don't want to boo him. So it's like, come on, crowd, make up your mind. You wanted this for the longest time. But the crowd was like, no, we did, but not this moment now. So that's what I got from it in terms of, listen, this industry, as much like Jeff, you and I, when we do this podcast, sometimes things change. We go into a show thinking we're going to talk about a particular thing, or you mentioned something and I mentioned something. All of a sudden, we completely forget about what else we're going to talk about because it was so intriguing, that one topic, that we go on for 45 or 50 minutes. That's kind of what we did during Saturday Night's Main Event. And it's great because you have to be able to change and you have to be able to adapt. And to me, there's no better person in terms of John Cena doing that. And now with Cody Rhodes taking that anchor, he has to be just as good as adjusting, because a lot of things right now have not been working in terms of this title reign with Cody Rhodes. See if he can set it on course as we head towards WrestleMania. But that's the biggest thing I got from John, Jeff. I don't know about you, but the mere fact that, yes, people get injured, nobody's upset. But the moment creative changes something, everyone's in an uproar. How could you do this? I would have done that. Everyone wants to play money quarterback, but that's never the case here. So I got a great insight towards the tail end once they're all tipsy. And Jeff, that drink that John Cena was
Oh my God, I was gonna
so
say,
refreshing, man.
oh, I want it. I'm gonna go back just to find out just the recipe about it. Am I a alcohol connoisseur? I am not, but that looks so refreshing.
That was good.
You can't sit me. It was amazing, and the way John kept going to it, man. Oh man, I love that. I definitely want to try one. Definitely want to try that one soon. And a cheap pop there for a Wheatley vodka there, man. Obviously, that was very, very tasty. Well, what I will say too about John Cena is that there's no better person to explain it, and I'm pretty sure whenever he goes on these interviews, that will be talked about. The tapping will be talked. This will be the first of a gazillion until that man. Again, like I said, I don't want to talk morbid, but for the rest of his life, he will be talking about that moment and then the heel turn moment, that run.
Yeah.
They pivoted. They did all these things.
Those two things will always be in an interview.
And the turning
and the heel turn.
And the turning point was WrestleMania. Everything was, we were fantasy booking. We were talking about The Rock was going to be there at Mania, and that was the biggest letdown. And I think that's where everything changed. And I think that's where everything kind of went off the boards, and they had to pivot. The Rock not showing up, not for whatever happened, not being part of the plans anymore, where he got butt hurt or whether he just wasn't seeing eye to eye with Triple H, whatever was the plan, because I'm sure The Rock will have his version when they do a WrestleMania 41 doc or whatever, so it makes him look nice, makes Dwayne look like $1 million. I think that John Cena did good, and I think too, Trendsetter, with shows like Unreal, I think that WWE fans feel like they need to go. Everything needs to be pulled back. They feel like they need answers for everything, which makes it harder and harder for WWE to try to surprise the fans. They did a good job the last year and a half or so of surprising the fans of unexpected moments. I think that is why WWE has become a moment. Why they live on moments, because they don't have that chance, because everybody knows the answers already. So they have to give you moments. They have to give you that short-term fix, because everyone seems to be on a need-to-know business. And when you don't know, that's what the shock value is. So you can blame WWE about so many moments, but I think that the fans make them go and pull out those moments, because that's all they have left in this business, because we know too much. We think we know all this. We know who's going to win. We know who's going to lose. We know who's going to come out. We know who's going to sign from another company. We want to know all these things. We have access to it. So WWE has to sometimes create those moments, those ones where you didn't see it coming, because they have less than maybe a day and a half to hide stuff from us.
Yeah.
And no matter what you can do, there's always going to be leaks. So I think that they did a great job as far as, I think John did a great job.
He did. He did a really great job.
But it won't be the last time he does.
Yeah, it won't be the last time he talks about it either. But listen, real close in closing on this, on my statement here, is that I think wrestling fans, ourselves included, grew up loving the story and believing in what we were watching on TV. And until we got older, we started realizing that maybe what we saw on TV wasn't necessarily reality, but basically a story that was based on realistic feelings we had that caused us to be intrigued in what we were watching. And then when you see how it's done and how it's produced and how the magic is created, it makes the illusion that's more appreciative. So it's like going to your first magic show. You're amazed by all these things that are going on, but then you start learning, oh, wait, no, this is how you do it. And then you appreciate the work that goes into creating the illusion, right? But I think nowadays we have a sense of entitlement to a certain degree that, yes, the curtain's is pulled back a lot now, more than ever before, of how the business is run and how it's executed. But just because they've pulled back the curtain doesn't necessarily mean, from both standpoints, that from a company standpoint, that I have to pull it all the way so you see how everything's done. And from our standpoint, that maybe sometimes knowing everything before it happens is also a detriment to us because it takes away the excitement of the enthusiasm we do when we talk about certain matches or what the outcome might be when you talk to members of the crew or people that engage. It's nice to debate back and forth. Oh, I can't wait for this to happen or that to happen. So I think there's a little bit of balance that needs to happen there because I think a lot of wrestling fans, unfortunately, have a sense of entitlement that we need to know what was going to be the end result.
I demand to know.
I
How
demand
did you
to
do
know.
that?
You don't need to know. And it's not WWE or AEW or TNA or New Japan to tell you what the result was going to be that didn't happen. It's to their discretion. So that's the thing I chuckle about because everyone feels like we need to know what was going to be end result. Why was Rock not there? What was the real reason Travis Scott wasn't there? Will we know at some point? I'm sure something will leak out or somebody will say something or somebody come up with a rumor that we'll all be talking about here on the show, but they don't have to tell us. It's for us to talk about. But to John's point, and I didn't agree with it when I first heard the statement, but it's true. Who cares now? It's over. We saw what we saw. We cannot agree with it. We can agree with it. We can dissect what we thought would have been or what we would have preferred to see. Great. But am I entitled, me, Jeff, to know why The Rock wasn't there or why Travis Scott officially wasn't there or what would have been the end result? No, I'm not entitled to get it. I hope I understand. I hope I find out the reason why. But if I don't, oh well, I move on to my life.
It's the knowledge that you can be the first to post, the first to take the screenshot, the first to take the video, the first to do that. And I've been guilty of going to a show and watching this little screen instead of watching the artwork being performed in front of me, because part of me, which I say, no, I want to be there for the moment, kind of gets caught up in the whole information, wants to either put it out, wants to save the information. And I know Chris Jericho a long time said ago is we don't take pictures like we sometimes don't take pictures anymore. You just got to use your memory to remember what things were and stuff like that. But since we have this tool, which is a great tool, sometimes it just becomes getting that information out there, being the first to break, the first to, to spread things. And it's, you kind of lose the moment, you kind of lose the innocence of pro wrestling. And so I just think that we're at that stage. And obviously as Unreal comes out, down the road and we find out more stories about it, the more we're going to want to know. So there is positives and negatives to peeling it back. That's going to be a term that we're going to use a lot next year, I believe. Peeling the curtain back, peeling all that stuff. And there's negatives and positive towards it. So we want to hear from you guys. Is WWE based on moments because they're trying to get that out of you because you guys are kind of like, you guys are kind of impatient about how the story is going to go. All these things. Are they justified in providing moments? We'll find out, obviously. But 2025, so much to discuss. So you want to make sure you watch our award shows. January 5th, 2026. The categories have gotten smaller, but obviously we will give the best of 2025. We'll give out our awards. And make sure you stick with us here on HSP. Make sure you download, subscribe, hit that notification bell because HSP is on Give a Shot Network. We are powered by Bucked Up. So we will have the link so you can get discounts for Bucked Up from us to you. That is our gift, Bucked Up Energy. If you love your pre-workouts, if you love that stuff, you want to make sure you take advantage of the link for HSP and Bucked Up. Make sure you get your Bucked Up gear and all the Bucked Up merchandise courtesy of HSP Trendsetter. We got one more show before the New Year's, and then obviously the first of the year, we will have the award show. But listen, guys, we want to wish you guys a Merry Christmas and a great 2026. But again, we're going to give you the gifts of us coming up this week. But again, Merry Christmas to everybody as we head now, as we wind down towards the holiday season. Trendsetter, close this one as only you can.
Guys, have a Merry Christmas from us here at the High Spot Podcast. We love each and every one of you and appreciate you guys always participating and engaging with us during our live streams where they're going live on Instagram. We're doing episodes and you guys go in the comment section or following us and commenting us on the posts we put on social media. It is always appreciated. We never take it for granted. And although we might not respond to every single thing, we see everything you guys put out there. And like I said, it never goes unseen and unappreciated by us. So for my tag team partner, Jeff Martin, I'm the trendsetter, Bryan Berger. We are the Jersey Red Crew. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the High Spot Podcast, brought to you by Give Us a Shot Network. Thank you guys so much for that. And remember, leading into the holiday season or towards the tail end of the holiday season, we do this for one reason and one reason only. We do this for you, the
Crew.
crew.